Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to do my May wrap-up for all the books that I read in May, so we're just gonna get into it. At the beginning of May, I was able to go to Beaverton and meet Sarah J. Maas for her book release of A Court of Wings and Ruin, and obviously that was on May 5th. It was the beginning of the month, and I was able to get it and then devour it within the week, and it was amazing. You guys, this book, also Sarah in general, just like all of her books are absolutely amazing and ridiculously intricate and detailed and awesome, and the characters are so great, and you know how I feel about these books. And so this was no different. That week was not good for school because we were gone for Monday and Tuesday and then came back on Wednesday, and I was not sleeping because it doesn't look like it's that big, but we have Bible pages in here. So this whopping 699 page book was read in 2 days, and there was nothing else that got done. So finishing this at the beginning of May really got me in like a high expectations. I gave this book a 4.8 out of 5. It was amazing. It was such a good culmination of the entire series. Obviously, it wasn't my favorite book out of the three. Akamath definitely takes the cake for that one. It's just so detailed and you get to see all the character arcs, and that's my favorite kind of thing to read, like in Air of Fire. Sarah's middle books are so amazing, and this was such a good tie-up, but there were still some things that I didn't necessarily see that I really wanted to see, some details that I had some questions on. Obviously the series isn't done. We still have 3 more spin-off books in this world and 2 novellas, so I'm sure that we're gonna get all of those, and I'm extremely excited. It is the 3rd book, so I can't tell you that much about it. The first book, A Court of Thorns and Roses, is a loose retelling of Beauty and the Beast in a fae world, so we follow a young girl named Feyre, who is a hunter to try and provide for her family who has fallen out of their riches, and kills a fae and falls into this kind of treaty and the curse that was placed on the fae that somehow ties into this because she's this girl and then there's this beast, but it goes so much further. That's just the first book. There's so many things that get turned on their head, and I would highly recommend it if you ever wanted to get into fantasy or anything. There are some very explicit sex scenes in this series. If you're a younger reader or if you don't like that, then I probably wouldn't recommend it, but there's so much more than it. It's so rich in detail and the world building and all of the characters you just fall in love with, even though there's a lot of characters, but they're also quirky and wonderful, and I would highly, highly, want you to read this. So start with A Court of Thorns and Roses and move on until your heart can take no more. I've also been finishing quite a few series in the last few months, and so after youre finishing up the ACOTAR series, I finished Morningstar by Pierce Brown. This series is amazing. I know, I've had such good luck with books this year, like youre and finishing that and having just all of these amazing books come out, and so I started Red Rising last month, I think in April. If you've seen any of my reviews on these books, if you've read them and wanted to see the review, I'll link them down below, but they are absolutely phenomenal. These are my favorite books of the year, no contest. This is my favorite series of the year. I know youre just came out, it was hard. It was hard to like have that culmination, but having this entire series out and be able to read it within the amount of time that I did, and I also listened to it on audiobook, and Tim Gerard Reynolds, the narrator, is amazing. I want him to narrate my life, like better than Morgan Freeman. I love his voice. It's like deep and rich and Scottish, and he has so many different accents that he follows and like matches each character perfectly. Also, Pierce Brown's writing is ultimately one of my, he's become one of my favorite authors, like top 5. I love the detail and the deepness and like history that he adds, and all of these little quirks and different languages and so many wonderful names and character arcs, and also a lot of really, really, really great characters. Again, this is the final book to the trilogy, the Red Rising trilogy. So I can't say much about it, but if you want to start the first book, it's a breathtaking science fiction where we follow Darrow, who is a pioneer on Mars until something bad happens and he realizes that the world is not how he has been taught that it is. And he falls into this rebellion and has to take up arms, and so much happens. It's not just that. It's not there's like so many details and so many things that happen. Also, this book isn't that long. Like, you see it and you're just like, oh yeah, I can finish that really quick. So much freaking happens in this book. So much. And it's just so good. 5 out of 5, this book, this series. I would say that my favorite book in the series is Red Rising, the first one, but it does get better from there, obviously. Otherwise, I wouldn't recommend it as highly. But just go and read them. Just all of them. Everything. And last but certainly not least, for the month of May, I finished The Well of Ascension by Brandon Sanderson. This is the second book in the Mistborn trilogy, which is also amazing. After the first book, this totally compounds and like runs off with the world, and you get so much more detail and characters. Obviously, it's the second book, so you're going to be interested in all of these new things that are happening, and Brandon Sanderson has such amazing plot twists and details that you don't know of, that he's created this whole entire world and system and galaxy that has its own world, like rules. This is the second book in a series, so I can't really tell you what it's about. The first book, though, of the Mistborn series is called Mistborn, or The Final Empire. This is a high fantasy world where the magic system is called allomancy, and those who have this magic in them can consume metals and burn them, such as if you can burn tin, your senses will be enhanced, so you can like see further, hear better. If you can burn pewter, you become inhumanly strong, things like that. It's extremely amazing. You are following this kind of band of misfits that are trying to overthrow the Lord Ruler, who is this dictator and has oppressed everybody in it, and then they continue in The Well of Ascension and then on to The Hero of Ages. It's just so good. This book, we get to see characters that we didn't necessarily get to see a lot of in the first book, and they get to become kind of your favorite characters. In here, we get to know them much more. They become much more integral to the plot and see them grow. There were a few things in this book that I was kind of iffy on. It took me a while to get through it just because obviously it is a monster of a book, and the main characters are of teenage age, and even though they're in this kind of war, Brandon Sanderson still had time to write them in their like teenage quirks and like angstiness, and I'm obviously not a huge fan of reading that. I'm like, can you just get over yourself? Can we just move on? But obviously it picked up. It was so good. The last like 200 pages would not stop and were mind-bending and world-ending and so good. I gave this book a 4.7 out of 5 on Goodreads. I also have my review on there. I will link my Goodreads down below. So only 3 books for the month of May, but I'm not mad at it. These books are all kind of giant, and I have 2 endings to a series and the middle of a next one. Apparently I had a blue theme going on, but I absolutely loved all 3 of these, and I recommend that you guys go check them out. If you have any questions or comments, or you want me to definitely convince you, go ahead and comment down below. I hope you have a fantastic day, and I'll talk to you guys next time.